Hello and welcome to my studio. In this video I'm going to show you how I made this picture. Now this image makes use of a few techniques to create a specific mood. The foreground has a white balance to suit the candles, whereas the background is left at daylight, thus creating a steely blue tint. Add a little smoke and the atmosphere is complete. And in this video I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. Okay. So what I've got set up so far, I've placed a few items on this table, some candles and a skull and a few bits and pieces, just to dress the set really. And then at the back here I've built myself a shelf on a couple of stands, and on that shelf I've placed some other items to form parts of a background to that image. So to capture the image, I'm going to use this full-frame digital SLR with a 24-70 zoom lens on the front of it and a flash sync trigger on the top. Now this flash sync trigger can also control the energy in the studio heads I'll be using. The camera is tethered into Capture One software, so it's easy to see the results as we go along. Okay, so to initially just line up the shot, just place the camera on this tripod. So looking through the viewfinder, I'll just focus that up a little and then wind the zoom all the way to the 70mm end like so. And then I'm just going to wind the center column of the tripod up a bit just to get the right sort of angle. Something like that. About there will do. Okay. So the idea of the composition is to be more or less on the same level as the eye line of the skull. If anything, I want to be slightly lower. That will just increase the dominance of this in the picture. Okay, so with that all set, next thing to do would be to turn the camera on, like so, and the software has recognised the camera. These are the settings that I have on the camera at the moment. So it's in full manual mode. I have a shutter speed of 1/250th of a second, which is the flash sync speed for that camera, ISO 100, and an aperture of f8. Now apart from the aperture, I should think everything else in this will change. But just as a starting point, what I'm going to do is just grab an image just to check that we're not getting any contamination with those settings from the house lights. So I'll just do that. There we are, and you can see from that that there's virtually no image to speak of. Okay, so we'll have to keep an eye on that as we change the settings as the shoot goes on. One of the things I'm going to do, of course, is light the candles, and I'm going to use the lit candles to actually illuminate this part of the set. Therefore, at the very least, I will have a much longer shutter speed. Anyway, we'll come back to that as we go along. Next thing to do then would be to set up the rest of the set. In the original picture, you will have seen that the background looks a little fuzzy. Now that was caused by using a shark's tooth gauze around here somewhere. So this is a black shark's tooth gauze, which I've got on this stand with an arm on it, and I'm just going to place that at the back of the set here, just in between the shelf which I've placed here and the foreground objects. Now what this will do, besides partially masking the background, it will also separate the lighting zones very efficiently. So this can be lit differently to this area. I'll come back to that in a moment. Now the next part of the background, if you like, would be the actual back of the set. And for that, what I'm going to do is just use this C-stand. So I'll just place that about there somewhere. Pop the arm up, and on here I'm going to place a roll of background paper. Here we are. So I have some grey background paper here. and I've just added a couple of clamps to each end of it just to weigh it down a little. Just pop that on here and just roll that out. There we go. There, that's the sort of thing. So what I've got is one zone here at the back with the background objects. Then we've got the gauze. I'll just adjust that slightly actually, like that. And then we've got the foreground objects. Okay, so the next thing to do would be to think about how to light this. So as I said earlier, what I want to do is actually use the candles to illuminate part of the foreground here. But that won't be enough on its own. I'm going to need something else to do that. So what I'm going to do is use a flash at the back here, pointing forwards over the top of this to the set at the front. So here I have a Profoto B1X, and what I'm going to do is just pop that up in the air like so, and then place that in position about there somewhere. So with that somewhere in an arbitrary position for the time being, what I can do is just turn the flash sync trigger on, and we can just turn that head on. There we go. So at an arbitrary energy level, what I'll do is grab an image and just see what we get. Okay, so we can see from that we're getting the beginnings of something there. Right, so the other thing that I mentioned at the start was that I want to actually make use of the candles at the front here to light this part of the set. So what I'm going to do is just light the candles, like so. And we'll just grab that image again. Now you can see from this image that the candles themselves aren't actually doing a great deal. So in order to make them do a bit more, what I'm going to do is change the shutter speed. Now, by changing the shutter speed, it won't affect the exposure from the flash, but it will affect the exposure from the continuous light from the candles. So what I'm going to do is just lower that from 1/250th of a second to something like what, 1/8 of a second? Let's try that. There's a bit of trial and error in this, but we'll just give that a go and see what happens. There we are. That's made the candles quite a bit more prominent, but it's also allowed the house lights to make quite a large difference to the look of the image. Let me show you what I mean. If I just turn the house lights out and we grab that image again, you can see that there's a huge difference between this one and this one, and that's down to the contamination from the house lights. Now the other thing that we can see in the image here is the colour balance. At the moment I have a white balance set to 5600 Kelvin, which is approximately daylight. So what I'm going to do is change that to 3600 Kelvin, which is approximately tungsten. So that's going to stop the candles being quite as yellow. You'll see what I mean. There we are. That's whitened up the candles considerably, but the light from the flash is still very blue. So in order to correct that, what I'm going to do is place this colour correction filter over the front of the light. Now what this will do is change the effective colour temperature of this light to match the candles. There we are. So with that now corrected, I'll turn the house lights out again and we'll grab another image. Okay, so that's coming along quite nicely. But overall, I think the exposure is now a little low. So what I'm going to do is gain 3 stops of exposure by changing the ISO. So at the moment, the ISO is on 100. And I'm going to change it from 100 to 800. Now that's a 3-stop change, which will make quite a difference to the picture. And I'm using ISO to make that change because I want to keep the shutter speed at about 1/8 of a second. Otherwise it will start to smooth out the effect of the smoke. So keeping that at 1/8 of a second and keeping the aperture at f8 means that the only other alternative I've got is to actually change the sensitivity in the camera. Okay, so with that change made, out with the house lights again, and we'll grab another image. There we are. That's a much better exposure. That's exactly the sort of thing that I want. And you can see that the light from the flash is almost the same colour temperature as the light of the candles now. Okay, so with all that in place, the next thing to do is to actually add that accent light on the background here. And for that, I'm going to use another B1X. Here we are. And we're just going to pop that up in the air a bit and just place it about here somewhere, something like that. There we go. Right, so now if I don't put any colour correction filter on that flash, it will appear very blue. So just at an arbitrary energy level, we'll just turn the flash on and we'll turn the house lights out and grab an image. Right, well we can see from this that it's all starting to work, but the light in the background is really going a bit everywhere. And it's also possibly a little bright. So I'll correct that first by just taking 1 stop of energy off that light. There we go. And to stop it actually going everywhere, I'll use this snoot and just attach it to the front of this light. So once again, we'll grab an image with no house lights. There, that's a bit better. So this is what we had before. You can see that we've got all sorts of light going everywhere. And this is what we've got now, which is quite a bit more controlled. So what I think I'd like to do now is just fill in the front area of this part of the image. And to do that, what I'm going to do is use a reflector about here somewhere. But in order to be able to see what I'm doing, I'm going to turn the modelling light on that light. So I just select that light and just turn the modelling light on. There we go. Now the reflector I'm going to use is this one, and this is just a mirror. And I'm using a mirror because I want a hard light source. So this will literally reflect that light straight onto the head there. So if we just place this about here somewhere. Now by moving the mirror, you should be able to see the effect that I'm getting there. There we are. So I can just fill that in just like that. Now without the modelling light, this would be very difficult to get in the right position. But with a modelling light, it's quite simple. Okay, so with that done, I'll turn the modelling light out and we'll grab an image. There, that's filled in quite nicely. So this is what we had before, and this is what we've got now. So all this area is now filled in quite nicely. Okay. So with that, the next thing to do would be to set up the smoke. Now in the original image I had a low smoke all over this area. Now I produced that with the help of this smoke machine. So I'm just going to place this on the corner of the table like this. Now this is just a normal smoke machine, so in order to make the smoke descend, I need to make it more dense. And the way that I'm going to do that is to use this tube, which I have here, and basically this is a tube which is full of marbles, and this has been in the freezer overnight. So the whole thing is very, very cold. So I'm just going to place this in front of the smoke machine like so. Like that. So we just have to wait for the smoke machine to warm up and then we can give it a try. Okay, so now the smoke machine has warmed up, I've turned the lights out and we can give it a go. So I'll activate the smoke machine and grab some images. As you can see, the smoke is laying quite low. There we are, we're getting quite a few good images there. Now with any of the captures like this which have a random element, it's worth taking quite a few pictures. So I'll just wait for the smoke to clear and we'll have another go. So for the next set I've also added a couple of extra flags. Okay, so that's it for the actual capture. It just remains to go into Photoshop and import the pictures and do the bare minimum of post-production. Okay, so here we are in Photoshop and I've loaded up the selection from all the images that I've previously taken. So this is the one that I've decided to go forward with. So the first thing I'm going to do is just make a copy of this. And the way that I like to do that is just go to the background layer here, right click the mouse, ask for a duplicate layer, but ask for a new document. And we'll just call this Halloween. Okay, so then Photoshop has made me a new document, called it Halloween, and it's at the top here. So I can get rid of the camera original. That way I can edit this one and leave the camera original alone. Okay, so what I'm going to do to this? Well, I think the composition is pretty good as it is. So basically I think I will just add a bit of a vignette into the corners and just go from there really. So in order to do that, and there's lots of different ways to do it, this is just one way that I like to do, I'm just going to add another layer, and on this empty layer I'm just going to fill that layer with black. So I'm just going to make sure that the black is selected as the foreground colour, and just using the paint bucket, just fill that layer. So this is the black layer, and I can turn that on and off. So all I need to do then is just erase a hole in the middle of this layer, and it will reveal the picture that's underneath. So just using the eraser with a fairly large soft brush, I just bring the image through until I'm happy with the edges. There we go, something like that. Now should you make an error, say for instance I go too far, it really doesn't matter. I can just get rid of that layer and just do it again. And it doesn't affect the background image at all. There we are. So with that done, what I can do now is just pick a crop I'm going to pick a specific ratio because I'm going to use this for video. So something like that I think will do. Might just move the image up ever so slightly. There we are. And there we have it. So by having two separate zones and having different colour balances in each zone, I've managed to get a blue steely background reminiscent of moonlight, and also have quite a warm foreground. With the addition of a little bit of low-lying smoke, I've ended up with quite an atmospheric little picture, which I think has worked very well. Okay, well I hope you enjoyed watching how I made that image, and if you like watching these sort of things, do click on the other images as they appear, and don't forget to subscribe. Oh, and hit the like button. Thank you very much for watching.